across the taxonomy that you have seen, an action verb can run. It is subject expert, that's a teacher is the one who decides which level am I focusing in this course. The only question as a subject expert you need to ask is, when they identify, how are they identifying? Are they identifying based on memory? Then this identify will be matching with a memory level, remember level. Are they identifying by conceptual meaning? Then it's an understand level identification. Are they identifying by a creative thinking? That in that context, then identify becomes in a create level activity. So the actual word doesn't matter. The action word is not the one that decides the level. Identify can come in different level. How are they identifying? So writing, for example, you can write based on your memory. There is something called creative writing. When we say level of understanding, what exactly we mean by is which level? Yes, which level? There's only one level understand is there. But when we say which level of understanding means, we are considering what are the levels that we need to consider for a course. Now, if you are an autonomous body, then it is teacher's decision. Because teacher is a subject expert. He or she has to say that in this course, for example, if it's a basic course, where do you want to pitch? That is your choice. Nobody is going to dictate. Nobody should not dictate saying that you should go this level. That is a subject expert call. But traditionally what we do is lower level, we probably focus lower. Advanced courses we focus on advanced, but there is no data supporting that a lower course cannot do anything at the create level. People can do. But which exact level is a subject expert call? In an overall curriculum, that means which contains all the courses, somebody has to look saying that when different courses are offered, many of these levels are touched upon or trained, because these are all the human faculty, possible human faculty for a human brain. So in a education program, we should touch upon all these levels. That is the idea. But that is the job of a curriculum committee, where the committee looks up all the individual courses. An individual course, no need for touching upon all the levels. For example, the example that I have shown, no, some of them are touching upon only 3 levels. Some of them are touching upon 3 levels. Because a course is done, how many? 40. So depends upon X number of contact hours. You cannot actually develop all the thinking expertise. That's over ambitious. So a course, choose appropriate level, and another course, another level. But somebody has to monitor all these courses and say that now, okay, every course, if you consider everything, all the taxonomy is covered. We are fixing the goal first. Then we are attempting to achieve it and see how much we have progressed. So that is so that there is a benchmark. We are setting the benchmark first. Now we do in the semester teaching whatever possible things, and finally do an assessment and see with respect to the benchmark, where are we? That is because then what happened is that you can put a very quality benchmark first, standard, and then see whether you can approach it as close as possible. This regulation is possible if you have a benchmark. That's why they don't want to do it afterwards. Set the goal in the beginning so that you can improve. Every semester you can do. That is the idea of accreditation. Accreditation, they come and say that, you know, what is the gap between these two? They call it attainment calculation. So they ask you to calculate what is the outcome attainment, the prediction and the attainment. After the coursework is over, we will come to know. We are conducting exams, and what is the result is the actual outcome. But here we are predicting it in advance. And see, compare these two things. That is a philosophy. See, once you expect an outcome, you can actually prepare the content in such a way that it can be attained the most beneficial way. Unless we do it, they themselves know whether it is a clear understanding or not, right? So we make them to design the outcome in the course, present it and verify it, get the feedback from different part. That exercise has to be done. Then only we can say that, that learning is really happening. Many of the time what happens is familiarity is mistaken for expertise. Students think that, oh, I heard it, okay, now I know it. but that's only familiarity. That is not expertise. Expertise, you need to make your hands dirty. You need to, toil with that. There is no other way. That's how you get expertise. So that time we need to provide for the learners, and then you need to make them walk through that path, then they will get expertise. Ideally, all objectives are to be met, right? That's why we are defining those objectives. All objectives we want to achieve. Now you are saying that there is not enough time for processing these things in the classroom because it's only 90 minutes and then there are so many things to achieve. It's a time management issue, right? What is suggested, we are going to see some methods, but here there also the normal complaint that we are getting is teachers always say that there is huge content to be delivered, and where am I going to do all these different ways of doing it? Well, there are different approaches. One thing is, you record your own session, a normal lecture, and probably you can, or all of us can, some important concept we want to tell, how much less I should speak on that. That training we can do ourselves. We normally talk a lot to communicate something which actually can be done by proper choice of words, 1/3 of it. We can actually save a lot of time. So that kind of a training we need to do ourselves so that we can save some time in the classroom, and then the remaining time we can actually ask them to do something, observable actions. So there are different teaching strategies, but all those things, the general principle is ACL, active and cooperative learning. Various kinds of learning, the general classification is active learning and passive learning, right? We are all the products of passive learning, right? So teacher was telling, we were listening. Learning happens, obviously, we have learned a lot. But what research says that better learning happens if we can make the learners active. And there is another point is peer learning. Learners talk to each other and learn. That also counterintuitive. All of them are in the same ignorance level. What they are going to learn by talking to each other is a question of concern. But what research says that they learn better than a knowledgeable person telling, a professor telling. These are all counterintuitive things, but actually proven by research. Okay, you throw something, two people talking about and then trying to tackle it. And the learning curve that they are crossing is actually more than what a professor is telling how to actually do it. So this is the essence of this principle called active and cooperative learning. The idea is that in any of this method, you don't see lecture as a teaching method. So it basically telling you that you can do lecture, but remember it's very ineffective way of teaching. One particular method we'll discuss. I'll show you the cartoon representation. You tell me what is the gist of it, what is the crux of it. It's called book and model of class. So some terminologies, if you are not very clear, we'll discuss that. So these numbers 10 to 12 and all based on again studies, research studies, what they're saying is there are many things, attention span, retention span, many spans are there. So what they're saying is average value, these are all again average value. There are students who can focus actually 50 minutes or 1 hour straight. There are students who lose attention the moment you step into the class. This idea of this one is don't just follow exactly 10-12 minutes. That's the idea. That is not the idea. The idea with which I am presenting this slide is the philosophy. An entire straightforward lecture class is something not what we are looking forward. That doesn't work with the present generation. Okay. What we need is probably we need to provide some content which try to reduce it and then focus what exactly we need to give. Try to give it as succinct as possible. Then there is something called a 3 to 4 minutes of learner activity. Remember, in the outcome we say observable action word. That is what practiced here. They will be able to calculate tax. Let them calculate it now. So whatever we said in the outcome that they will be able to do, This is the time, classroom is the time that we need to ask them to practice it. Okay. Then probably you need to provide some other information. You provide that, again ask them to practice it. So this 10 to 12 minutes is content providing, 3 to 4 is content processing. Earlier, it was completely, the entire class was content providing only. So a slight deviation, there are many methods in which there are much more different drastic way you can change the classroom, but as a beginner, a person who moves from a lecture based class to a pedagogy based class, we normally recommend this method because other methods are even more difficult. Okay. So here still you can see that you are lecturing a lot. So you are still in your comfort zone. Okay. Only thing is it's not a straightforward continuous lecture. You are breaking your lecture. Advanced organizing is something that you do in a classroom to organize the learners in advance. That means the topic that which you are going to discuss, let the audience be aligned to that. That exercise, whatever need to be done, that is called advanced organizing. The idea is that in a class where there are 40 or plus students are there, without getting everybody aligned to the topic, don't start the class. That is the idea. It makes common sense. I mean, we can start, nobody is stopping us, but that is not the right way to start. Let everybody on the same page and start. To that, what we can do? That is a question. So you are going to deal with that particular context in that class. So because people are thinking about various things, unless we get their focus, don't start teaching. That is the idea. So you can ask a question, they may not answer and we don't want the answer also. We don't want the right answer now, we want their attention only. So pose a question that you did not teach, they don't know the answer, which is fine. And then you can even give some time and then ask somebody to respond. They will just simply stand. That is good enough. That's what we want. We want everybody to class focusing on that particular topic.
At least listening mode.
Listen, so they like in the olden times we used to have that antenna on the terrace. We used to rotate it, right, to get the signal. So orientation is important to get the signal, receiving signal. So that's all we are doing. But that is very, very important according to methodology of teaching. Without that, if you start teaching, actually you are not taking many of them with you. That is the idea. Another major thing, majority of us do this, slightly probably in the wrong way, but recap. Recap is something that we say, no, last class, what happened? But the only thing that we do is, we normally tell the class that in the last class we discussed. Teacher himself or herself will recap. What methodology says that you don't recap, you ask the student to recap. That's the only difference. The learning responsibility will be with the students. Don't take the learning responsibility. Okay. So your role is only to teach. So let them learn. You can ask what happened in the last class. Now everybody is now slowly aligned to that subject. There are two things now. One is the design element. Actually, when you design the outcomes, we are designing the outcome for everybody in the class. So we are not keeping the idea that fast learners, slow learners or medium. We say that these outcomes are for the course. In that outcome, some of them will be really difficult, some will be medium, some will be easy. But we don't say that we are designing it for those students. Okay, our idea is that let everybody, now whether everybody will reach that difficult learning, that's a question that we need to find out, we don't know. But what I am trying to say is outcomes are course specific, not students specific. That is point number one. Now coming back to the advanced organizing, this is something that you are actually doing in the class. Okay, not the course design. We can ask them to share something. Whatever, connected to the topic. You are writing only the topic. You invite a response from the audience. That is a good thing. You said demo, right? Demo is also possible. A small demo, something. A short video, some 30 seconds, 60 seconds video. These are all techniques that teachers do to get everybody on the same page. When I say everybody, majority. There is nothing like perfect or perfection in a method, right? There will be always some outliers. So don't worry about it. majority should be with you before we start the class. So after that, you are now telling something or content providing. In content providing, why this after 10 minutes, 12 minutes, we say attention span and all. What the research says that there is short-time memory and long-time memory in the brain. When information keep coming, at a given time, there are like n number of information you can handle in short-term memory. If you cannot process into the long-term memory, when the new information comes, it will erase the old information. This is the drawback of a lecture. In lecture, you are continuously giving information. That's why in a seminar, most of the questions are asked probably toward the end of the slides, because the earlier information keep getting erased, because the person comes with some 98 slides and then keep on showing it, right? So if you cannot get processing time for this information, some students can do. I'm not talking about all students. Some of us can do, but all students cannot do that. So the efficiency of the process itself will get reduced. That's why we are giving a stopping time and then asking them to process it. So let us go back to your class and take your subject. I want you to now think a learning activity in the class that you can ask, which takes 3 to 4 minutes, as a group activity, individual activity, whatever it is. But in your subject, can you tell what kind of an activity we can ask in a class, which takes 3 to 4 minutes of the learner's involved work? We can ask quiz. Quiz means it's like a multiple choice thing, or what way that we are designing the quiz? Audience poll. Audience poll, see, quiz we can ask, any kind of a poll we can ask. There the questions will be designed in such a way that if the questions are in the analyzed level, it may take 3 to 4 minutes, even if we are giving multiple choice. You can give ABCD, but answering may not be that easy. So it may take 3 to 4 minutes. So that is one way of doing it. You must be doing a lot of case studies. Yeah, those things will be taking eventually 5 minutes or more. Yeah. So use those things in the classroom. Only the information that is sufficient for doing a case study, provide it. Even if sometimes you don't have to provide orally. Either you can have, printouts of those one, or you can upload in somewhere. Everybody has a gadget. Gadgets are allowed in the class. If you are allowing them to bring the gadget, ask them to access it online. Whatever you want to tell, either you record yourself or you show that this content is available here. Let them read it in the class and you ask them to do the case study. So the question that how much we do the time management, that can also be addressed. Some teachers ask them to see this before they come to the class. That is called flipped class approach. There is a method called flipped classroom. They ask them to, but when you ask them to see and come, we know our students are students, right? So they won't watch it. Then the remedy is that they do a test in the beginning. They will tell that there is an exam in the beginning to test whether you have seen it or not, and that exam contains mark. So all these monitoring features will be implemented. So I don't recommend a flipped class. I don't generally do it, but this is very efficient. You can tell in a minimum words, then ask them to start working on it. And when they work on it, you need to actually walk around the class and see whether any help is needed. That is possible. Gamification is there. One thing that I have seen in many classrooms about this game is, many games they think as a physical kind of an activity, and then people lose focus. So they take the fun part of the game, because every game has to have a fun part, but the real difficulty of the learning is not getting through that process. That is one feeling that I have about this whole gamification aspect. But anything seriously done with the pen paper on your computer, something that they have to really work on it. This 3 to 4 minutes means that's intense work, not a yes or no question. In that way, everybody is doing interactive class. We ask something, somebody will say some answer. Those are all traditionally done. Here the context is different or the picture is different. We are asking everybody in the class to do something. Okay, it's a structured activity. And teacher stops lecturing. Teacher will become silent. And we make everybody to do in the class. These are the difference between the traditional interaction and this interaction. So I'm suggesting another possibility where you just increase the difficulty of the question. 1 minute is not possible. Reduce the number of questions.
We can do that.
So what happened is that more thinking is demanded. That means that in-depth question is asked. So more thinking we are demanding. Then what happens is that in that process, students become better students. You take any syllabus. You don't see much difference in the syllabus. But you take the question paper. Now you see the difference. So quality control is always in the assessment. How much difficulty is the question that we are asking? And how many of them are able to answer? This is what determines the quality. If you want to increase the difficulty level, you need to increase the level of question. Right? So then what happens? Such a kind of a training, if you want to give, then 3 to 4 minutes really involved thinking is required. That means complexity of the question will increase. That we need to do a lot of homework, how to actually make a very difficult question. This is the idea of this particular way of teaching. If it is a very easy question and answer, you don't have to actually do all the trouble of this. Okay? This method works if you demand more thinking. Let us go to the last part, summary. What is the purpose of summary? Summarizing a class. Reiterate or reinforcement. So every time toward the end of the class, we should spend some time for reinforcement. But practically what happens is that just before the bell rings, we have to introduce another concept because we have to cover the syllabus. Practically that's the way things go, but what theory says that you have to provide time for them to reinforce. In the education psychology, what they call it is elaborate rehearsal. Elaborate rehearsal means how the books are tagged and kept in a library systematically. If a learner can actually classify the information and keep it in his or her memory, the retrieval ability will be very high. Learning is always judged based on the ability of a person to retrieve, not receive. But in the classroom, we are training them to receive only. This is another problem. Our training mode should change. You always ask them to retrieve. Because finally, that's what, based on what you are judging, this person is a better learner than the other person. So the retrieval training is important. As many questions you can ask, you ask, so that they start practicing this retrieval game. Highlight 10 points from today's class. Let every student write down. 10 may be big, but 3 or 4, whatever it is. So everybody write down. You ask randomly, what did you write? That is a better way of doing the summary. Are you doing any online assessment tools? What are you using? Google Form is there. Kahoot is there. Poll Everywhere is there. Many online tools are there. You can use. Are you using any LMS? Learning Management System? Okay. Moodle is a free LMS. We use Moodle. It's a free, all that you need a server to upload it. A lot of things can be done using Moodle. You can use the same, you can ask them to just poll their summary in the Moodle also. So these are all different way of collecting their thoughts into the teachers. Another very famous or useful summary technique is called minute card. Minute card is, you need to provide maybe half size of this sheet to students. Okay, it can be a A4, one-sided A4 sheet folded into making 4 pieces. If the class size is 40, you can give individually. If the class size is 60, 80, per bench you can give. What we are asking them is 2 things to write. One is the most clear aspect in the class. Second thing is the muddiest aspect in the class, the most unclear. The clear part, muddy part. Two things only they have to write in that card. You collect the card before you leave the class. Next day when you come, you address the muddy part. That will be your advanced organizer also. So there are two things that we covered in one shot. So minute card, there are a lot of research happened on minute card, okay. We are not going to the details, but minute card actually help the learners to improve their metacognition. Very important that they should write only these two elements, not the stories. They will write many things in the beginning. We just remove all those unwanted things. You respond to genuine questions, and slowly the unwanted comments will go down, and then you start getting serious comments. It's a process. In a methodology teacher, you need a lot of patience. Don't expect a big change overnight, and they see that teacher is responding to those, then it becomes a habit. But it's a very good thing for summary exercise, because when you ask most clear, most unclear, they actually rewind the entire class. Many times you see that they are flipping the pages of the notes. That's the exact idea of this question. Okay, that is another way of doing summary. Highlighting, we can ask highlights, keywords, we can ask. So many different ways you can do the summary. But don't stop the class without summary.